Hello and welcome to CNN News 18 with me, Ayushman Singh Jamwal. Some big breaking news on the LAC standoff between India and China. India and China are now close to de-escalation in Eastern Ladakh. A three-point proposal is on the table. Number one, tanks and armoured vehicles to be withdrawn immediately. Number two, China withdraws beyond Finger 8 on the northern back. And number three, India withdraws to Finger 2. China has proposed that the area between Finger 2 and 8 be declared a no patrolling zone. The proposal also calls for 30% troop withdrawal in the first instance and complete de-escalation by next summer. Another round of talks is likely to be finalized, likely to be held in order to finalize this deal. So this is what we're getting on the big LAC standoff between India and China, that a deal could be cracked at the end of the day to withdraw, to de-escalate tensions at the line of actual control. We're joined by Arunima on this story. Arunima, good morning. Arunima, how concrete is this proposal?
Morning. This is the first time that both sides have agreed to discuss de-escalation. So far, China has pointedly refused to have anything to do with withdrawing its own troops. China kept insisting that India withdraws from North Bank of Pangong and then China will consider. This is for the first time that it has agreed to simultaneously withdraw troops. So in that sense, it is positive. However, there is at least one proposal from China's side which India could find a little problematic. The three-point proposal, the number one is that tanks and armored vehicles be simultaneously withdrawn from that territory. Second proposal is that India withdraws to its post there, the Dhansing post, which is between Finger 2. So it withdraws there, whereas China pushes its troops back to Finger 8. And then the area between Finger 2 and Finger 8 be declared a non-patrolling zone. This India could find a little problematic, because our perception of the LAC runs till Finger 8. If we are not allowed to patrol up to that point, there could always be a risk of China encroaching later. And that is something that India will have to consider as to whether it can really accept that proposal in interest of de-escalation. The final proposal is 30% troop withdrawal initially from Pangong and subsequently from the Chushul sector. Depsang, where there is a bigger problem, will be considered later. And by the summer of next year, that's the timeline that has been fixed of complete de-escalation in that area. So while the positive side is that China for the first time is considering simultaneous withdrawal of troops, the weather, sub-zero temperatures reaching up to -15, -16 right now is a huge factor, along with diplomatic pressure that India has managed to exert. But we'll really have to see if this no patrolling zone between Finger 2 and Finger 8 is something India can accept.
We're also joined by Lieutenant General Sanjay Kulkarni, defense expert on this story. Good morning to you, Mr. Lieutenant General Kulkarni. This new proposal that's coming in to de-escalate the situation at the line of actual control, what factors are leading up to this de-escalation process? And at the same time, how concrete can we find this proposal coming in from both sides of the LAC?
Good morning. Firstly, a welcome step. Let's put it this way. Look at it positively, a welcome step. But having said that, we must be careful. We must be conscious of the very fact that we need to verify everything. We can't take it for granted, because the Chinese conduct so far has been deceitful. And that's at the backdrop. We now proceed with the de-escalation that has been proposed. Well done. I think it's a good thing. But we must not forget that the Chinese have already mobilized and are at places where they desire to. And if we are now deducting or pulling back tanks and the armored personnel carriers, of course, they have a good network wherein they can deploy themselves much earlier and faster than what we can. That's the first thing. But irrespective of whatever it be, if the Chinese can pull back to Finger 8 on the northern side of Pangangso, and we are where we are on Finger 2, 3, 4, because all along, so far, we were patrolling till Finger 8 and they were patrolling till Finger 4. As I assume, after this engagement that takes place, neither we will be able to go to Finger 8, neither will they be coming to Finger 4. If that be so to begin with, I think it's a welcome step, at least for the time being. Not just withstanding the Pangangso part, the other parts also need disengagement, especially and primarily the region of Depsang, because that's where the troops can be very close to each other. If that also takes place, that I think is a good step. However, having said that, 30% to begin with, verification after every disengagement, I think both the countries seem to have realized that it's not worth it to have an eyeball-to-eyeball confrontation. But we must be careful. We must keep our guards on and be sure, trust, but verify, and verify.
I'll take that point to Arunima. Arunima, like the general was saying, that we have to be very careful. But does it seem that in this entire scenario, some pressure has worked on China to kind of move towards this level of a proposal?
See, multiple officials have spoken say that ever since the summit happened in Moscow, where External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar spoke to his counterpart Wang Yi, that was the time when in the region between there was an eyeball confrontation between the
PLA and the Indian Army. That was the point when a shot could have been fired and then things could have, gone bad. So from there to have pulled back to this situation where we are told that in the last few days, the guns of the tanks that have been deployed, their faces have been turned away from enemy position by both sides. The commanders at the local level are speaking to each other, negotiating every time a truck for transport purposes or for any other purposes moves. So there is communication at the ground level. And now China is willing to consider simultaneous withdrawal of troops. So from then to now, there is a lot of positive change on the ground that commanders are telling me about, and they are crediting S. Jaishankar and his diplomatic corps with continuing to exert international pressure via Moscow, also telling China very clearly at every summit level talk that India is not going to accept this forced alteration of LAC that China is attempting. That has been a huge factor, along with weather. In spite of the psyop that China was carrying out, that they are better prepared to face the harsh winters of Eastern Ladakh and Indian soldiers would die, the reality on the ground is that both sides are suffering because of the harsh winter condition, and there is an apprehension of massive casualty. Up to 200 is the number being feared if the situation continues. So combined two factors could have forced China to do a rethink, but once again, like the general was saying, every officer said that, we can't be completely trusting of China. We have to verify, we have to be wary, since that has been the past experience. But it is good news that at least China now is willing to consider de-escalation. That's the positive news coming.
I'll take that point to General Kulkarni. General Kulkarni, do you see this proposal coming in as a sign of India's tenacity delivering dividends at the end of the day?
100%. The very fact that we have been able to be clear and we have stood our ground and we've said status quo ante April 2020. That's what we've been wanting it. Whatever. There have been 8 rounds of talks. At each time, China has been insisting that we pull back first and they will take the next step. This is the first time that the Chinese have accepted that, yes, we will pull back from finger 4, we will go back to finger 8, and thereafter, whatever the proposals are, obviously, they are occupying dominating heights on the southern side of Panggang. So, the Chinese have realized that the Indians are holding a firm ground. They mean business. They are not going to accept whatever the Chinese are going to say. It was the Chinese that have actually led to whatever the situation there is today. It is entirely because of China. And China has to take the initiative of pulling back. If China does that, India will also reciprocate, but verify and verify. Winters is something which is bothering China more than it would bother the Indian troops. Because the Indian troops are battle hardened. They've been staying there for years on. So that doesn't really make much of a difference to them. It's only the numbers that matter. But the Chinese definitely are wary of the winters. They know that. And therefore, that could be something which must be weighing very heavily on the Chinese mind to pull back and then see to it the next summer. But we need to be careful. Absolutely, as I say again, trust, but verify.
Arunima, this proposal, how do you see this? Do you see this as a direct impact of the diplomatic pressure India has been able to ramp up on China, namely the meeting of the Quad nations as well as the 2+2 dialogue which just took place recently?
See, multiple factors. Like I said, yes, our diplomatic corps has played a huge role. External Affairs Minister is being credited with a lot of that turnaround. Also, a representative of the External Affairs Ministry was part of those talks. So the double speak that China was indulging is one thing they would say when the MEA level talks happened, and another thing when the defense corps commanders met. That double speak, there was a attempt to put a stop to that. That worked. Weather is a factor that is playing on China's mind right now. But one thing that one must point out is that the first proposal of withdrawal of tanks and armored vehicles, the thing to worry about is, and this is what Indian commanders have pointed out as well, that the infrastructure on the Chinese side is much better than the road construction and other infrastructure on the Indian side. So if both sides withdraw their tanks and armored vehicles, China would be able to come back to reclaim the same position at more speed. than India would. India took them by surprise when we managed to get our tanks up on the ridge line. They were completely taken aback and they were not happy with that at all. Now, if God forbid another such situation arises, will India still have that element of surprise that they managed to hold against China this time around? If we withdraw our tanks and armored vehicles, will that be a negative in future? All of these are questions that South Bloc is currently considering as it reads through this proposal. But this is the best on offer right now. And there are indications that even if China can't be 100% trusted, even if there are these problem areas, there could be some forward movement in the next round of talks, which was expected. The dates were expected this week itself.
Thank you, Arunima, and Lieutenant General Sanjay Kulkarni for joining us on this story. A huge step to resolve the LAC crisis. This proposal calling for disengagement by next summer, but only time will tell whether this move can gain momentum over the coming waves. Now shifting focus to battleground Bihar. The Bihar mandate has once again proven that the Modi wave is still strong.